and welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf. When Mr. Festus Keyamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, was appointed Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, many did think the president might have been mistaken, because what a lot of people know of the minister is that he's a lawyer who has since earned his place in the inner bar. And I guess it won't be out of place to say that the minister knew he would have to work to earn his name as the minister of such a highly technical sector. The jury will be out there as to how much progress Mr. Keyamo has made over the last 17 months since his appointment. But what many cannot deny are some of the changes they've seen at the nation's many airports since he became minister. The question is, are these changes sustainable? What is the overall outlook for Nigeria's aviation sector, which is working to come back on its feet amidst the many challenges it faces? Our guest tonight is none other than the minister himself, Mr. Festus Keyamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Honorable Minister, welcome to Hard Copy. Thank you,
Malcolm, for inviting me.
I did imagine that when, the president became president, you might have had an inkling that he might make you minister. But did you think he was going to be Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development?
Well, I kept an open mind. I didn't know I was going to be appointed, first of all. I wasn't too sure, but I just kept an open mind. But at the back of my mind, I felt, well, if I'm called to serve, I'll be ready to serve in any capacity. So I kept an open mind, really. I wasn't thinking of any particular portfolio. So I was ready to take on any challenge.
Even if you were, it certainly could not have been aerospace development, aviation and aerospace. Were you surprised at that?
Well, I was ready to take on any challenge, so I kept an open mind, really. I'll put it that way. I really kept an open mind.
Okay, so
I wasn't too crazy about getting a particular portfolio, but I thought if the president felt he needed my services, I was ready to be flexible enough to serve in any capacity.
Yeah, but I would have thought, I'm sure many Nigerians would have thought that what you've been known for over the years is your services and your expertise as a lawyer in advocacy, in many other spaces relating to law and human rights and those kinds of things.
Well, what people don't know also, because I had a stint, as minister, already at that time, was that being a minister is more like an administrator. You have to manage men and materials. The technical part of being a minister, you have all the people behind you to support you, all the directors and technical people to explain to you, just like being a president. Being president, you have to manage a minister of, health. You have to manage a minister that has to do with engineering. You have to manage a minister that has to, even, Attorney General of the Federation and all that. When you're not a lawyer, as president, you have to manage the whole country. So you are just a manager of men and materials. A minister is a smaller version of a president, a smaller version in a sector where you also have the technical people advising you what to do. What matters is your ability to understand those advice, ask questions, and take very final decisions based on those advice. That is what matters, being a minister. But the ability to manage these people, weigh this advice properly, and they manage the materials and men and all that. That's what matters, being a minister. But however, what people also don't understand is that sometimes some sectors, it's not what they describe outside that really happens inside, in terms of the technical work. For instance, being a minister of aviation has to do with mostly interpretation of documents, of agreements, and bilateral service agreements and all that. And of course, the public could see the result of some of those things. The first thing I did was to attack the policy issues on the Cape Town Convention, the practice direction, and that is pure law. That's pure law.
So you did find expertise that you already had,
100%.
For useful.
We had to unlock the UK routes again for our local airlines, insisting on our reciprocal rights under our bilateral service agreement. How were we able to do that? If not, if you don't have the fine mind of, a legal practitioner and to look at these agreements with a fine comb.
So if I get it right.
So that's it. That is exactly what we did.
You weren't a fish out of water, precisely.
I found myself as a fish in water. And don't forget that I'm also an international arbitrator too, I'm a fellow of the International, Chartered Institute of Arbitration in the UK. So it was easy for me to go into some of this arbitration and some of these with our partners all over the world.
Well, 17 months is how long you've spent there now. And some people will say, well, I would say aviation, I have a fair idea of. Aerospace development, what does that entail?
Aerospace development means to develop the entire aerospace, around our airports. So, things that have to do with the, aviation. For example, the mandate just before the last government, left involved developing the Aerotropolis, which involves, of course, the ideas of modern airports going beyond just the runway and the terminal buildings. That was the old concept of airports. Runway, terminal building. People just come down, they check out, and they go, or they check in and they enter their flight. But these days you have the whole aerospace, which involves conference centers, involves, shopping, involves rails coming into the airports and all the transit points and everything. So it's the whole aerospace. At times you have training schools, you have repair facilities, like they put, like all kinds of things around the airport. So it's a whole aerospace development that the mandate now includes.
Interesting. Funny enough, or will I say interestingly enough, you were at the National Assembly recently, this week, to defend your budget.
Correct.
At the National Assembly. I'd like to confirm, what is the budget for the Ministry of Aviation? Is it 70 billion or 71 billion or 106 billion?
It's the main ministry itself. You have the Ministry of Aviation and you have the agencies attached to the Ministry of Aviation. So for the main ministry, it's about 71 billion, about that. Then you now add the budgets of NAMA, NIMET, and those other agencies. That's when it goes to about 101 billion or so. And
you oversee all of these agencies?
Yeah, I oversee all of these agencies.
Do you think you need some technical expertise to do so?
Of course you need. There's nobody that does not need technical expertise, technical support. That's what, I want to say. So, for example, NIMET is a very technical organization that has to do with the reading of the weather. And so they bring all the technical reports to you and explain them thoroughly. And, you take final decisions. NAMA, they are the people who take care of our navigational aids, how they guide planes to land, to take off and all that. You need technical, advice and all of that, and then you take final decisions on that. On and on. That's why when anybody comes to tell you that they are aviation experts, it makes me laugh. Aviation is like a big elephant where you have different parts of the elephant. It's not possible for somebody to have operated in all these parts of aviation all their lives. Many people, all their lives, have just been pilots. They have nothing to do. They know nothing about weather reports. They know nothing about navigational equipment. They know nothing about running the airport. They've just been pilots. But when they come, they tell you that, I'm sorry, but I'm not talking about pilots alone. But they say they're aviation experts. No, you have just been a pilot. Somebody has just been an air traffic control officer all his life. Just directing traffic. He doesn't know how to fly a plane. He doesn't know how to administer airports. He comes and says he's an aviation expert. So who is an aviation expert? Who is an aviation expert? The only person who is an aviation expert is the minister. After he spends some time and he oversees the entire ecosystem with a bird's eye view on the entire system, he covers everything. That is the proper aviation expert if he does well. Not even
the DG of the NCAA.
How? He can't be an aviation expert. All you do is regulation. The DG of NCAA, you do regulation as to safety of aircrafts, how the aircraft is, willing, they're ready to fly, certifying aircraft fit to fly and all that. But do you know anything about administration of airports? DG of NCAA has nothing to do with how you administer airports, about FAN. So who really is an aviation expert? I'm asking that question today.
Well, you were at the National Assembly, and I know that there were quite a number of sticky points that came out from your engagement.
Yes, correct.
And one of them I noticed was this issue of the second runway. I mean, one of the things which you had done in your first few months of being in office was to resolve the dispute around land.
Correct.
Which had been hampering the development of the second runway. But yesterday you disclosed that you were going to terminate the contract because of the cost of variation, which you are not going to accept. Isn't this taking us back to square one for such a critical piece of infrastructure?
Well, unfortunately, it has to be like that for now. It's not taking us to square one. We've gotten somewhere, but we can build on that. As public officers, we must be reasonable about the type of, because these positions we are kept are positions of trust. They're positions where people expect you to act with the fear of God. And so somebody cannot come and vary a contract, and you are seeing like that is like a 700% increase of a runway. How much do you use to build a new airport? And then that is why I said, look, I act, with honesty and transparency, and that's why I disclosed the figures on the floor. That the original figure was 70 billion, but there was a 20 billion, I think there's contingency also, they put that's 90 billion. And all of a sudden, because you say there is, the dollar has exchanged, the naira, value has changed, prices have gone up and all that, and then you now say 90 billion to 532 billion. Nobody's going to accept that. And you're pushing it down my throat. And I said, no, even the president himself, being the leader of the country, does not like such variations. He has told us clearly about that. He feels it's an avenue for fraud. And I also think so too, if they are unreasonable. Of course, when there is the change on value of the naira and then the goods are dollar-based, you can have slight variations. And I have a lot of variations within my ministry too. All ministers, they have variations within their ministry. But you as a minister, you have to be reasonable together with your permanent secretary and the tenders board to say, what is the percentage of the change of the dollar to the naira? What is the percentage of the... And then of course, you do your own due diligence too. So it is for us as ministers to advise government correctly. And I thought that was unreasonable. And I said, it is time to maybe throw the bid open again and say, who can do it best for us? What has since happened since that revelation? Has there been any reach out from the contractors or any attempt at negotiation? I now hear they can do it at a much cheaper rate. That is what it means, to be in public office. You have to be wise and reasonable, in such things. I'm understanding now that some letters came in today and all that saying that they cannot do it at a far, far, far cheaper rate. And I said, why didn't you say so originally? But we are going to look at it all, involve all the stakeholders. Mr. President will be briefed. His report will go to his table, and my chairman of my committees and all that. But me sitting down here, I have a duty to abide by my oath of office and to act with the fear of God. The second sticky point was the issue of the school, the aviation school. Interestingly, I had seen a complaint, a petition written, as a matter of fact. I don't know if you saw that petition, from those within the school who had the school in Zaria, the aviation school in Zaria, who had, wondered if you were trying to take the aviation school away from them, or whether you were trying to, remove the autonomy which they had enjoyed over the years. Precisely what is the idea behind the establishment of aviation schools around the country? It's not aviation schools, the training colleges. It's just the training colleges where you train pilots. There's no controversy about this. I think it's just the storm in a teacup. Did you see the petition? Well, I don't read some of these things on social media. It wasn't on social media. It was in the newspapers. It's just flying all over the place. I don't... public officers at times must be very focused in what you do, especially when you know that these distractions are just ethnic based without reasonable and tangible, reasons. But like I said, it's straightforward. The aviation school, college, they trained about 99% of our pilots and our captains, all of this what you see across the country that we are very proud of. And we are very, very proud of our school in Zaria. It was established in 1964. It has won so many awards, so many accolades from across the continent and even ICAO, in Canada. So we're very proud of it. Of recent, of course, it is also public knowledge that we had problems of accommodation of students. And so we had to go outside the school to buy the Zaria hotels. So for your information, the Zaria hotels have been bought by the federal government to make it an annex. It's an annex of the school. It's not within the school premises, but we needed space. We needed, more facilities. So we are renovating the Zaria hotels as I speak with you now. But of course, with the surge of intakes and the kind of expansion we want to do, we know that the Zaria hotel, even when completed, may not even accommodate all that we want to do. So the federal government, we thought that, look, why not also then give campuses? Of course, Zaria remains the headquarters, take note, no doubt. Give campuses to other parts of the country so that people will also have easy access. Instead of expanding and buying more buildings within Zaria, when you have a country of 240 million people with 6 major regions, why not then give other regions campuses instead of expanding within Zaria for certain courses to be in those schools, in those regions? And of course, other parts of the country will have easy access to these training facilities. Nothing more than that.
Let's talk about the airports and the work you're doing in that particular area. And in fairness to you, I think there was this video that went viral. Much as you might want to dismiss optics are very important. Aesthetics are very important, and that's what people see. In fairness to you, this last December there was a video that went viral and people were saying, oh, that look, the minister seems to be doing some work here, our airport looks different. This was a testimony of Nigerians, and I'm sure you must have seen that. However, there have been other complaints as to the price of our tickets, for instance, whether we're being skimmed off. A lot of Nigerians say it is cheaper to buy tickets coming to Nigeria, it's the same destination, to buy them from abroad or to even to buy them from neighboring Ghana or Benin Republic than to buy from Nigeria here. I do not know if such complaints have come to you and what you're doing about it, if you've heard about them.
Yes, they have, and we are addressing it in several ways. So there are two aspects to this. One are the local domestic flights and the cost of the tickets, and the other ones are the international flights. So there are two. Let me address the domestic flights. The domestic flights and domestic operators who run regional flights and domestic flights, they have had the problems of capacity. We've called them several times. Of course, you know that it has been the price of tickets over the years, it has been deregulated. So government cannot regulate again, that's the truth. If you force them to say you must now charge this, they will ask you for the extra as government, because they'll show you their cost of operation. So government now lacks the capacity. I must make that point first before I discuss the other issues, to now say you must peg your price as so and so. If government says so, then government must be ready to look for the money to subsidize. So we cannot do that. What we can then do is to put pressure on them to say, we have made 1 or 2, 3, 4 concessions for you as domestic people, then you must make your prices competitive. And secondly, we must also try and make that market very competitive enough, because it's only competition that drives down prices. Also the issue of competition. Now, our capacity of our local airlines to service these buses is the biggest problem. So when they don't have competition, they drive up their prices. Now, you can see that for the London route, the price crashed because EP started that route. But now, Air France comes here almost 14 times a week. We cannot go to Paris. I'm talking of Frankfurt. They come. Schiphol, from Schiphol, KLM comes from Schiphol. Lufthansa. But we cannot service those routes. So it is a monopoly. Those routes are monopolies. So when you have monopolies, now, so once our local airlines begin to now ramp up capacities to now service these routes, these airlines will no longer, they have to force down their prices, because our local airlines will be selling in Naira and at a cheaper rate, because they can collect in Naira and do all the obligations in Naira. But then the international airlines will be forced to now come down to meet this challenge. What
I hear from you is that you want to leave the space entirely open to private sector operators, because for a number of people...
That is what you said now.
No, that's what
I say so.
Let me explain what I'm trying to say,
because you just took me to the extreme now.
Yes, part of the conversation, because you just talked about a lack of competition, and some people think that lack of competition is, even exacerbated by the fact that Nigeria does not have a national carrier. That conversation has been on for a while. I think it's a sore spot for many Nigerians, wondering why a country as big as ours will not have a national carrier. Is it something that is of priority to you?
It's something that we can do once the conditions are right. But don't forget that Nigeria cannot buy planes. Now, we don't have that capacity to now go into full-time.
You spoke of dry lease.
Yeah, but to buy, I said buy planes.
Yes, I mean,
once the dry lease comes once dry lease comes now, Nigerian businessmen can come together. That's why it's important to make those conditions good first, before you can now attract, sectors and people to come into that sector. Now we are just there. We are just arriving there now. And I have on my desk a lot of proposals now for people trying to float a national airline. Nigerians, indigenous Nigerians, people bringing in proposals. They can now have access to cheaper aircraft. For example, 5 people can come together, you, Moakwe, and 3 of your friends. You don't need all the money in the world now. You can go into the business by raising a small capital, depositing and get 10 aircrafts. And then you now be doing higher purchase. And you can say, look, Give us an AOC. Let's call this a national airline, and we can consider that. But that's where we are going now. Okay, but we don't want a model that the courts, for example, said wasn't good enough. In the whole of Africa, all the airlines in Africa are either owned by government, sponsored or subsidized by all of them. Rwanda Air, South African Air, Egypt Air, Morocco Air, Kenya Airways, Ethiopia, all of them. It is only in Nigeria, I repeat, Mark, only in Nigeria that you have strong private sector participation because of the robust economy and the traffic we have here. We have 23 active private airlines. We must give kudos to them, operating under very difficult circumstances. And I wonder why previous governments did not even see that as a KPI to say, how do I support them? Many just left them to their fates. Just say, do what you like. Survive. You are not my business. How can major players within a sector not be the business of government? It is this government that was the first government to say, one of our major objectives is to ensure that we do policies for their survival, for their support and survival, while holding them to international standards. We must also hold them to international standards. So this is what we have done in this government, because it is only in this country you have such massive private sector participation in the aviation industry. Indeed, and that must be commended. But what you're saying is that in the actual service itself, government is not going to get involved. Is that what you're saying? Actual service how? By that I mean owning aircraft, being in the business of actually floating an airline. But I just told you that. You said private individuals submitting proposals. But government will not. Are they seeking for government to buy shares in the company? Into going to full-time purchasing aircraft or leasing. The government will not do that. Government cannot afford that kind of luxury now, in quotes, when you have private airlines doing the same thing. But if somebody wants to run some group of people want to run a national airline, for us to go into that's a PPP. We have a brand we want to sell. Government has a right to the name, the national carrier. And so we now say, we give it to you to run. Give us some profit out of it because it's our brand you are running. But you put money into it. Perfect deal. So the Nigeria Air, as run by a predecessor, is totally started. No, that's about to be started. It's unclear what really was going on there. It's totally off the table. The courts, not me. Courts. I know. I'm just saying. Court judgment. It's not in your own. It's not within your purview. I can't go against the court. The court said it's illegal. Oh, the court said it's illegal. Oh yes, the court itself, not me. So you're no longer running that model. It's the court now. Should I go against court? I'm a senior advocate. Mr. Festus Keyamo, let me also ask you about ancillary services around the airport. Well, you've talked about what you're doing to bring prices down, the prices of ticket down around the airport. What people have also noticed is the cost of ancillary services around the airport also seems to be going up. When I came to Abuja many years ago to expand my operations to Abuja as a private lawyer, I know what I used to take a drop. A drop was 200 naira to any part of our metropolis then. I'm sure you remember. I'm sure you. I'm glad that you say that. That's not the case now. That's not the case now. I'm glad you say that because I also remember my first time here in Abuja as a national youth NYC. Yes, I wasn't even serving here. I was transiting through Abuja as a student, finishing school. I was asked to pay 2,000 naira from the airport. That was how many years ago. Yeah, I remember. Today, you're paying as much as 30,000 naira from the airport to town. Can we really justify that? Well, like I said, we have adjusted. Those details are in the commercial department of FAN. Yeah. Okay, the commercial department of FAN. It's not the minister really. But I take responsibility for it. I'm Minister of Aviation. But what FAN does, the commercial department of FAN, they look at all the factors, what they use to maintain the car parks, what they use to pay the staff, we're a revenue generating department. And they look at the realities on the ground in terms of the percentage of increase of things generally, and then they fix their prices with these operators. But it's the commercial department of FAN that takes all of these into consideration. What is your general overview? What is your agenda for 2025? Where are you hoping that the Nigeria Aviation and Aerospace Development Agency, that is an agency now, but the entire ministry and that entire sector will be at the end of 2025? What are your goals for this year? One, to ensure that we open up the space in terms of ease of doing business for our local operators. So we can bring in a lot of dry lease aircrafts into the country. And we've done a lot of the groundwork for 2024 and 2025. The end of it, I want to see that happen. A lot of the thriving local airlines thrive more and force down their prices. So at the end of 2025, we also want to have our master plans ready for all the airports, because we don't want the concessionaires to come and tell us what they want to do. We will tell them what we expect in terms of our master plan. So we're about to start, our master plans for the 5 international airports first before others. By the end, these are minimal, issues we want to achieve at least in 2025.
Well, we can only wish you the very best in this new year. We hope that it goes as you plan, and that there will be no accidents recorded, and that there will be. It will just be.
We should also mention that too, that the safety standards, we have to continue to ensure we supervise our agencies to ensure that they uphold safety standards to the strictest points.
I think it's a fine place to leave it, Mr. Festus Keyamo, SAN. Thank you very much for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, that's the program tonight. We have to ask you to send in your feedback to the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogunyosef. Good night.